Hello and welcome to the Nutritionist podcast episode 6. I'm your host, Ismail Zutad. On today's episode we have a super interesting guest and personal friend of mine, Gabriel Siegel, sports therapist, someone who's worked within the sports industry for several years and has, if I'm correct, both a BSc in sports and exercise science and an MSc focused in sports and exercise therapy. He's now going on to do his second master's degree at the University of Hertfordshire, where he'll be gaining another MSc in physiotherapy. Someone who I think is so important to have on this podcast for several reasons. As nutritionists, we often think food is the only thing to focus on, when we should know better. Physical activity plays such a crucial role in one's health, and without having experts on, we may never really know just how important it is to think about aspects such as recovery. And of course, hypertrophy, interval training, all these very important technical terms which I'm sure nutritionists have come across and thought, how the hell do I apply that in my practice? Well, look no further, because this episode will be covering all of those and more. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that social media stuff. And once again, I'd like to give out a big shout out to our sponsors, NutriAdmin, who have been so kind as to let me take this episode on and let this podcast grow the way it has. So big shout out to nutriadmin.com. More about them at the end of this episode. Hello everybody and welcome to the Nutritionist podcast. I'm your host Ismail Zutad and we are episode 6, I believe. Man, it is crazy how time flies. I remember just yesterday it was episode 1 and now we're all the way there, episode 6. So it's crazy. And today we have a very special guest, and I say this every week, but I really mean it this time around, because this week I'm going to bring you my best friend. He's my pal. He's my homeboy. My rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese. You could almost say he's my sweet time boy. Introducing Gabriel Siegel.
Hi Ish, thank you for having me today.
I'm so sorry for the crazy
That was a great intro, so yeah. I've got a lot to live up to now, I guess.
Now the reason I decided to bring Gabriel on today is actually for quite interesting reasons, because normally the aim of this podcast is to bring nutritionists, but Gabriel has a very interesting past, and it's not primarily nutrition focused, but it's on a secondary position. It's, you know, he's from an exercise background, fitness, and the importance of it in health. Gabriel, let's talk about for a second when we first met all those years ago. Let's say it's probably been about almost a decade now. We were still in school, and if I'm correct, we just met. It was the start of A-levels, and I was very big into my bodybuilding at the time. And I remember at the time, when I was into that sort of stuff, I had no one to kind of train with, and I realized I met you at the time, but you were doing something very different, if I remember. What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a kid, you know, you go through the education system, primary school, secondary school, and exercise is always something that's very much pushed onto you. My dad's, mum not so much, my dad was always quite into his fitness, went through, you know, difficulties when he was younger growing up, and fitness was something he used as a, I guess you could say, very much of a mental projection into being in a more positive outlook, a positive space. And I think as kids, you do pick that up. You're a sponge to your parents' music taste, sport, hobby. So I started to get into running. Long distance running, something I never really thought to do, but I tried it once and loved it. Yeah. And I think when I met you, that sort of, I'd been maybe doing it 6-7 months. Yeah. Basically went to Middle East for a month for a trip and really enjoyed walking and started to run. And I guess we were in very similar. You'd been doing bodybuilding a couple of years, and I.
Well, for a couple of months actually at the time, same as yourself.
It was, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we kind of, me and you shared that very new hobby of a new sport and something that we focused and we put our drive towards. So very new to it now. You know, I look back now and think, you know, I was very, very different person back then, and what I knew compared to today, and my studies have obviously changed that. But yeah, long distance running. Long distance running.
I mean, look, this is the crazy thing. So I remember first getting into a long distance run. We ran from our town. We live in a town called Boreham Wood. We ran to the adjacent town, which was Radlett. And I remember that was the first...
I think it was about 5K, I think.
That killed me, I remember that. It was the first time I'd done an outdoor run. And I think it was an early summer's morning. That was the thing that really got me, because it got very hot very quickly. Yeah. And you were like, Ismail, whatever you do, don't exhaust yourself, because this is meant to be a run that, you know, if you run fast now, You're going to come to regret it in about 10, 15 minutes time.
Always.
And I'll never forget those words. But so you were a long distance runner. You went through school. What path did you decide to take? You know, with your passions in mind, what was the path that you took?
It sounds really cringy and cheesy, and I feel like everyone always says this, but I think as a kid, I've always been fascinated by the body. I mean, looking in front of me now, I've got a book on the immune system that I've got, and I hate reading. Something I've never got into. I always liked fiction, but I really just love learning about the body. It's always something I've been fascinated about. Yeah. And I think what people have said to me about my empathetic nature and helping people, that's something I've always enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. So I ended up obviously going to college with you. Mm-hmm. Didn't work out the way I wanted it. Mm-hmm. Ended up going back to college to do sports and exercise science, BTEC, which, I really enjoyed it. Had a drive for. I wanted to sort of hone my skills and develop my experience on learning about the human biology and the anatomy of the body. I think nowadays I have more of an MSK kind of specialisation pathway. That's what I really like.
Mm-hmm. And what is MSK for our audience?
Musculoskeletal. So it's basically, in layman's terms, it is everything to do with the body and structurally wise. So not so much organs, but looking more at tissue, looking at ligaments, tendons, muscle, bone, and everything that basically allows us to have the stability and the function to move, whether that was walking to the park or whether that is lifting a weight above your head. Wow. So I ended up doing that, and then really wanted to sort of continue that. I'm not going to use the word passion today because I hate that word. They always say on a CV, never put passion. So I decided to continue, went to Leeds Becket University and did my undergraduate in sports science. Yeah. Hands down, not just saying this to the viewers, but the best 4 years of my life. Best 3 years, sorry. Yeah. I then continued, stayed on and progressed to an MSc, Master of Science in Sport Therapy, as I realised that the injury rehab and, from a running point of view, I think motivated me a lot to move forwards into that kind of help people that I've had problems, whether that's from a health perspective or maybe an injury perspective. So I did that, qualified as a sport therapist in March 21, so just over a year now. Apologies, that's my phone.
That's all good.
So you can tell it's my first time on a podcast.
It's understandable.
Do not disturb. See, guys, we don't prep this sort of stuff. It happens.
It happens naturally. That's what makes a podcast just so authentic.
And ended up working for Bournemouth Football Club, which is funny, our local football club, so down the road from me, which was very convenient. I ended up starting there as an intern and worked very, very hard and, learnt some amazing things, met some amazing people that have, got me to the place I am today, and ended up working there for 2 years as the senior medical lead for the club. So I was doing all the dugout stuff. Yeah. Again, if people out there that are interested in their football, we did quite well last year, getting into the 5th round of the FA Cup. And
I think that's actually a crazy story. So at the time I was deployed with the World Food Programme in Algeria. And this is actually a crazy story because I'm like thousands of miles away in the middle of the desert, and no cap. I was sitting there in a coffee shop with with a cup of coffee in my hand, looking at the TV, and what do I see? My own club, this tiny little club, now being projected all around the world, playing another team, Everton, I believe it was.
Yes, Goodison Park, 5th round.
That was a tough game.
And I think for someone of my standard, had been qualified probably not even a year, maybe just over a year, to be heading up the department with my colleague Ellen, who I'll give a shout out to because she helped me through the hard times when it was stressful, as every job is. Just an amazing experience. So I could go into, have to do another episode one day and look into how to not make it, but how to get yourself out there, because at the end of the day, from some of my experience, I'm 25, you're at the same age, we're still at the start of our career.
Exactly.
And it's getting yourself out there, and you're not going to find a job with loads of money and stuff, but you will learn so much. So quick update now, I left Bournemouth earlier the year in June, and I'm progressing to do physiotherapy. So I'll start that in January, which will be the next journey to
next level.
Specialise, yeah.
What would you say, look, from all the experience of exercise that you've kind of come across, physical activity, and looking at the fact that you've worked in a professional fitness setting, so like a football club where, athletes, you're dealing with athletes. You are dealing with people whose diets are meant to be in that kind of deviation of the population that are meant to be a little better than the average, right? What did you find were kind of the big challenges in terms of, are athletes so different in terms of their nutrition and their fitness and in terms of their health as the average population? I'm assuming you've come across kind of both sections of the populations. And were there any things that stood out to you? Were there moments when you went, well, yeah, that's not so different actually. Athletes because I've felt that way. Whenever I've kind of dealt with athletes, from my experience of being a personal trainer, when I dealt with the more professional athletes types, it's just a case of there really is they kind of go on these heavy extremes. But I tend to realise that actually, for the most part, there's not really that much difference.
I mean, I think it's a difficult topic, and again, for everyone out there, this is only my opinion for what I believe, and a belief's a belief. So disagree with me, agree with me, it doesn't bother me. As that rhymed. I think it's an interesting one, definitely, Ismail, because from an athlete's point of view, whether you're at the top of the food chain, you look at bodybuilding, or you look at, let's say Messi or Ronaldo or Mbappe or whatever.
Yeah, the crazy names.
There's some crazy names, isn't it? I worked in a football club that is National League. So for people that don't know Football League, it's the 5th league. It's after League 2, so you're not in EFL. So they take it as seriously. There are some athletes that maybe don't take it as seriously as others that are coming up towards sort of that age where they're developing. The older athletes that are 30 plus now, and unfortunately on the physical decline of losing muscle mass and stuff. So it does become more difficult. I think it ranges from athlete to athlete, but I think there is a difference. But at the end of the day, these are human beings. I have said to you during my years of running, and I think you may be similar, that I'm very much all or nothing person. If I'm going to be dedicated towards something at the moment, so right now I'm getting back into my running after a small break, I'm not going to be going out and doing stuff that I think would be
counter beneficial to
correct,
it, yeah,
and would possibly deteriorate or put me at harm's way in terms of, let's just say, what most people do our age, go out on the weekend and get drunk.
Wow.
We know the science behind it. Yes, it's a great time, but there are drawbacks, aka poison. Not good for you, but look at the immune system, how the immune system has to cope, and you suddenly put yourself in a decline. Then adding exercise to that as well, you will put yourself more at risk to get ill and injured. So there's a balance, but I think the way I believe my motto or my mojo is everything in moderation. Enjoy yourself. You're on this planet once, go out and enjoy yourself. I'll come back to the question that was asked. I then too to rabble. So I think there is a little bit of a difference in terms of the nutritional value, and maybe looking at different meals and structuring meals in a way that the athlete can not only enjoy their food, which I think is a massive thing, important aspect of any exercise or life. You have to enjoy
lifestyle
what you do.
Yeah.
If you're on these really strict diets or fad diets, as we call them, where you're just counting calories and you're thinking about the next meal, or what am I going to eat? I don't know. It's got to be healthy. I think you can kind of build a bad relationship with food. Is there.
That's very true. I mean, what is it? 1 in 3 women, I think, globally in the UK have some form of eating disorders. It's whether it be a psychological one, and then obviously you have on the extremes the anorexias and whatnot. But I mean, just the fact that I think it happens to men as well, so much more often than people give credit for. But actually, we have developed a kind of society almost that has really kind of these unhealthy extremes where
there's no middle ground.
There is no middle ground. I think that's the important thing. Where does the population,
I think, from looking at pictures that are edited and everyone looks their best, and from my point of view, yes, I didn't go down the body point of view, and you look back at school, and a lot of in my opinion, a lot of kids were very much like, I want a six pack, I want to have a nice bum, all the females, and I was always very much like, no, do you know what, it's not about the way I look, it's about the way I feel, and if I'm healthy, if you are physically fit, let's just say, I said to go out right now and run a 5-6 minute mile. Yeah. You can do that. You're probably physically fit, but also you're going to look physically fit. You do get people that look fit and actually aren't because of, let's say, bad habits such as smoking or drinking.
I've definitely seen that. Yeah, there's sort of exterior. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I think I know a certain model back in our time at school who's now gone to be a model. Really good guy. But I would definitely say, his diet was Pringles. His diet consisted primarily of Pringles at school. But he looked amazing. It was so annoying to see.
And it's frustrating, but you look at people that actually maybe don't look like they work out a lot, but they are in a very good shape. I mean, you look at some of these, for example, look at some of these runners. Let's just say Mo Farah as an example, because most people know him. Doesn't look anything. And if you didn't know he was a runner, you wouldn't think anything of it because he's very lean. But he's
very lean. He looks so skinny.
His aerobic capacity, his lactate threshold, and his running economy is ridiculous. So he can do stuff that probably most people can't even do for, 500 meters of running. So I think it's all to do with being happy and being in a position where you're able to do stuff, but at a balance. So again, bringing it back to the diet, I think there are changes. But at the end of the day, I think everyone's different. You can have all these equations and all these things to work out what you need, but I'll be honest with you, I don't like counting calories. Right now I'm on a bit of a lifestyle change where I'm in a deficit to try and lose weight. I've got about 20 kilos to do. I've got a marathon in end of May, so
good luck. Whereabouts is it? Edinburgh, if I'm correct?
Scotland.
I heavily advise. How many marathons have you done now?
I've done 3. I've done Brighton twice and Edinburgh once, and I thought I needed to set myself a goal, and I've set myself a goal now, and this is it, 8 months of hard work and the grind, and I guess it's finding that balance of still enjoying myself but not taking it too seriously to the point where I stopped doing social events, I stopped going out, because running is my life, it always has been. Even not doing it, it's still something I love to do. But things do get in the way. You know, I'm fortunate enough I haven't got a family or kids. I am starting uni, but it's having that balance of both the physical benefits, but I'll be honest, as you probably can experience, running has the most amazing psychological benefits, from the endorphin release to that runner's high, as we call it, you get. And
nothing quite beats it. I feel like gym has never given me that. Like when I was training back in when I was at the gym and whatnot, and I remember when I first got introduced to running as a kind of as a modality of exercise, instead of the regular, which was just go to the gym, lift up some weights and go home. I found that training with weights was, although it does have its benefits, and there were physical benefits that came with that, I never had a moment, I suppose, where I left. I mean, maybe during the early months, and maybe after I started developing, I became a personal trainer. Maybe there was some sessions that I did that gave me that, but running was consistent in the sense that every time I ran, at the end, it felt like I'd achieved something that I had never achieved before. It honestly felt like the biggest rush of endorphins I'd ever had.
It's crazy, and it's so clear, and everything becomes so clear, and you realise when you maybe stop doing that and you find other habits, let's say other different types of sports, other modalities that, and again, my opinion, that they don't hit the same mark. And I guess for me, running came quite an early sport for me on my personal journey, but I know a lot of people that ran years before me. I only started at 16, so from a running point of view, it's quite an older age to start running.
Really?
Not that I know people that obviously start running at 40, and my dad started running at 30, but so, and again, naturally, the way I look, my build isn't, I'm not built for a runner. It was always the training that got me to that phase, and my weight's always gone up and down, but
fluctuates.
Yeah.
I mean, you've never been worried about it though.
No,
It's
never been worried. I've always loved food. I'd probably say I've got a little bit more concerned over the last couple of months, where I sort of decided to, not to go down the running route, and I was trying to find another sport I loved, and I think working in football made me enjoy football more, so I'm trying to find a balance, but I think running is always going to be something there that I don't want to give up, because I know that I enjoy it, and it's hard work, but it pays off.
Fabulous. Well, I mean, look, a lot of our audience are actually nutritionists who have clients who primarily, when they're dealing with them, will advise them a bunch of nutritional interventions, most likely, but they will also have that exercise element to it. And I suppose the question that I'm going to ask you, Gabriel, and this is of great relevance, I suppose, is, as someone who has seen and dealt within the fitness industry for so long, in terms of actual exercise, what are some of the best tips you can advise for nutritionists who dealing with their clients to make sure that there is a lower, a risk of injury? Because I suppose injury is going to be the greatest risk for anyone trying to have a lifestyle change. I myself went through several injuries.
I remember you got really ill because you were doing too much.
So bad.
Quantity over quality.
Yeah. And that goes to show, like, I really, and I injured I remember getting my shoulder injured. I think my wrist had this big bulge coming out of it. It still has it to this day. And I remember going through so much agony and thinking to myself, like, okay, now I've just compromised weeks and months of training. I'm not going to be able to get to the fitness I want to now because I went too hard too early. And I suppose I wanted to know from your perspective, seeing as, you're someone who has dealt with a lot of injuries in your time, and also have treated injuries. What sort of advice would you give to the amateur individual, or what advice would you give for other experts, let's say nutritionists who are listening to this, for them to take out and to apply to their clients?
I think when going through, I'll break it into two. Look at the nutrition part, and then maybe the I guess for me, the three components that I base myself on from a personal point of view, but also what I guess teach to when I was at the players and educating them. I kind of break it down into three categories for me. It'd be training stimulus. So I'll go into that in terms of, let's say you're taking up a lifestyle change and you're working towards, let's say, a goal. So let's say for you or me doing a marathon, let's say, you'd want to obviously build up your mileage. That is the aim goal, to get to the 26.2 miles. So that would be the bare minimum, going out and doing your 2 hour, your 3 hour, your 4 hour, your 5 hour runs, which would be building your aerobic capacity and getting yourself to the point where your body is able to be on your feet for X amount of time. Again, the speed dependent doesn't bother me. I think that would be one of the biggest part, and making sure that you build up progressively. So in our industry, and I guess in gym they call it progressive overload. Your body has the most amazing ability to train as long as you recover properly and actually become stronger and adapt to the environment. This is why people, let's say, that are ridiculously fit can do stuff that maybe the average Joe can't, because their body has primed itself and got used to that level of intensity or that level of training. The second component, I believe very much so, is recovery. Recovery, I think, is the most important aspect out of all of them. I think people, in my opinion, push so much towards train, as you did, as I did when I was younger. And if your body doesn't recover, I always think there's a graph. I can't draw it here for the viewers, but you know, as you exercise, you do break down your body. You break down your proteins. You have micro tears in your muscles.
You're very literally ripping your body
apart. You are damaging your body, and your immune system. You cause an immune response. It's not a lot unless you actually do serious damage, but for the next 24 hours to 72 hours, you are going to be repairing yourself, and you will feel it in DOMS, you know, delayed onset muscle soreness, which we've had, and after a long run, it's disgusting. And
it's a weirdly good pain, though, isn't it? I find it's the most weirdly satisfying pain.
You know you've done something.
But
again, people chase this DOMS feeling every session. It's like, no, you have to have, like with me and my running, each run is a roll. Some is a recovery run, some is intensity runs. So like maybe like HIIT training or
endurance training or fartlek.
So every run has a role, and if I break those roles, I will overtrain, and that's where you get injured. So you know, we use markers of cortisol. So there's an amazing study I found that this guy's using saliva to test the stress levels of people in his football team. So like again, sleep. All these recovery things that you see on the internet, ice baths, rest, ice compression, elevation, even from an injury perspective. You look at different modalities such as, I don't know, what do people use? Hot baths for recovery. They use these big cryogenic sort of chambers. They use these boots that they put on. I think they're all good. I think they're all good aids that you can use to get your marginal gains, your 1%, as Leeds Rhinos used to say. But for me, the best recovery is sleep. And I think a lot of people have this mentality of, no, I need to get up early, I need to train today, I don't need sleep. I'm not saying you need your 8 hours, I don't believe that. All the research is very wishy-washy on that. You need good quality sleep. That is your best way for your body
to... Wake up when you wake up, right? Wake up when you wake up.
You know, when you set an alarm and you wake up and you feel half asleep and you think, oh my God, why have I done this to myself?
Yeah.
Your body's not ready to wake up. Yes, you can train yourself to get up at a certain time. So today, it was my first day off in like 3 weeks. I thought to myself, I'm never lying today. Naturally woke up at 7:30 because my body's in that clock. So that's my kind of belief on, again, I want to hear your opinion on this, my belief on the second component of exercise. And then the third one is, you know, down this, obviously the viewers, is nutrition. And making sure you are giving your body what it needs. I don't like using the word food, I say fuel.
Yeah.
Your body is an engine, a machine. You've got your cardiovascular pulmonary system that requires you to have certain produce, or as we call them, macronutrients, that your body needs, you know, your essentials.
Pump that around to get it to the right place.
To keep you living. And you know, going down from those simple things, we respire, we need oxygen, we need glucose. And you have these people that go on these mad diets. You know, a friend of ours, obviously, as we know, that, you know, had quite a big change in his weight years ago, went on a diet that, I hope he doesn't mind me talking about this, but he went on a diet that me and you would probably say would be very, very risky.
It is very risky.
And yes, has benefits to
losing weight
very quickly.
Very aesthetic. It has aesthetic benefits, but definitely those aesthetic benefits are outweighed by the real physical risks of essentially toxicity in the blood with the ketones and
lack of vitamins. And
lack of vitamins as well.
Yes, the goal was desired in the end, but this gentleman / lady, I'm not going to say who it was, didn't break down the lifestyle habits or the behaviours that he had to actually...
right back.
This is it. So, you know, for people that, let's say, are looking to lose weight, for 99% of the population, it is calorie deficit. It's very simple, in versus out. If I eat something that's X amount of grams, I will put on X amount of grams until my body then is deciding to either store that as energy or remove it. Or use it. We're very clever the way our body is designed. And yes, some people have fast metabolisms, and others like myself, if I eat a lot, you know, I'll put on weight. I've put on about 30 kilograms since running days. But I think if you have all components of training stimulus, or exercise we'll call it for simple terms, recovery and nutrition, yes, there are other little bits, but I think from whether you're an athlete or a general population, if you can find a balance that works for you, and kind of my conclusion with this would be finding that level where you can stay a consistent sort of routine, but if not pushing too much to the point where you either get ill or injured. Just below that level, that's where you want to sit. But then every 4 weeks, have an easy week. Go out, see your friends, have a balance, enjoy the life. If you love to exercise, which I do, but you need time to let your body recover and enjoy yourself, because otherwise it becomes a chore and not an enjoyment. And I think that's
also, just to emphasize to the audience, by enjoy, we don't mean go out and start drinking, because that's actually doing the opposite. You know, if you think about it, it's actually go out, enjoy, have a nice pizza or something, do fun things, but don't toxicify your body with things that are unnecessary. I suppose alcohol, smoking, these sorts of things are really the big ones there. Now, I'm not going to stand on that sort of parchment and say these detox. Yeah, I completely disagree with these things that most foods are not toxic. Yeah, it's just, I think every audience member here knows exactly what I mean when I say have fun, but not that kind of fun. You know. But on the point you were saying about what I would agree, those 3 tenets, I would 100%. Now, if I had that belief system 10 years ago, I would be a completely, revolutionized person by this age. I would look better, I'd feel better. And not to say that I'm not in a good place, but I would definitely say that it is a learning process. This thing to understand these things.
And we're still learning today.
Well, we are, yeah. I mean, maybe 10 years from now, we might have it completely wrong. The research might show something else. But I know from other people, from yourself, from my own experiences, that you're absolutely right. Rest is plays such an important role, to the point where people, I myself fell folly to this. I grew most when I let myself rest. I grew most. And so what I mean by that, when I was a bodybuilder, I used to train every day, maybe twice a day, and I would not grow. 4,000 calories a day. It was ridiculous. I got very ill. It wasn't a healthy way of going about it. And I noticed that I wasn't resting. And actually, years later, I actually went on about a 2,700 calorie diet. For me, that was more than enough. And the most important part is I didn't train every day, but once every 2 days. And that difference was the weight was just being added and added and added. It's like it came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously there are factors such as my age, my testosterone level. These are all variables that need to be taken into consideration. I'm not saying that this way is the right way. But what I am trying to say is that you should really, really reconsider the element of rest and its importance in life.
And it worked for you. And this is, I think, especially for our viewers, everybody is different. Everyone has a unique system, and what works for you may not work for me, and what may work for me may not work for you. Mm-hmm. So there isn't a life equation out there that everyone should follow. Everyone's, I could eat the same amount of calories as you, but we're different body weights. We're different.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, you mentioned this other point as well, which really I needed to touch on, which was the nutrition aspect, where you call it fuel, and that's actually a very important thing. It's fascinating because you come from that background where you're dealing primarily with the muscles. You're dealing primarily with that kind of that makeup of the body, and what it is, the muscles primarily are like engines, right? They just take in whatever the circulatory system is giving them.
Available,
whatever is there.
If you're in a calorie deficit and you're not eating enough, your body will go into a state of catabolism. I can't even pronounce it.
Catabolism. Yeah, I mean, it's such a. I can't believe I almost said anabolism. That would have
Metabolism, been. And your body will break down its own protein sources, your own muscle for fuel, and that's not what you want. If you're looking to put on muscle, you're doing the opposite. You're counterproductive. Going back to fuel, it's making sure your body has what it needs. And I used to do a lot of my running fasted. My really easy runs, I'd go out and do 20-30 minutes. I wouldn't eat because I wanted, at the time the research for me was quite good. I didn't have to eat and wait to digest. I wanted to go out. I was burning primarily. I can't even talk.
Primarily.
This is what happens when you're too hyper and it's your first podcast. I was using oxidizing fat mostly. I was working at sort of 60%, maximum capacity, which is kind of where fat utilizes most.
Yeah.
But then on the runs, let's say where I'm going out a bit quicker, or I'm doing a session with you in the gym, I would fuel because my body needs that fuel at that rate.
Yeah, I mean, like at the same time as well, people always make this mistake of assuming calories are, you have 2,000 calories today, but it's okay because I'll have and then because that's okay. I don't know. They get themselves on this ridiculous diet. So if they overhit on their calorie target one day, then they stay on another level the next day. I'm almost saying, mate, it's not like the clock punches out at 12 o'clock at night. Calories are a weekly thing, monthly thing, yearly thing. You don't need to calories in versus calories out. The sum of all those parts doesn't matter about the scale of time that you're looking at. It's overall how much you're getting in versus how much you're getting out. But also from my perspective, I suppose this is where our fields start to deviate. Whereas you look at that primary aspect of how to ensure what kind of fuel is burnt at what rate, and essentially treating the body as that kind of engine capacity. I'm also looking primarily at the kind of health implications of certain food choices. So like we know that fruit and vegetables, well, primarily vegetables, aren't exactly the best source of fuel in terms of for the body. And we know that, right? It's not like impossible. Oh, if I eat a broccoli, I'm not going to suddenly have the energy to want to run. Okay, it's actually going to be a very hard thing to digest, and my body's going to probably spend...
on a very debatable subject with a lot of people, and again, for everyone out there, this is only our opinions. I'm not a vegan. I'm not endorsed by any vegan companies. I'm not promoting veganism, but I'm not promoting non-veganism.
Yeah.
I believe that, again, with the whole aspect of training, you should have a balanced diet. Yeah. If you would like, of your views, to eat less meat because of the animals, fair enough, do that. But as long as you're getting into a position where you're still hitting what you need. We've got a friend of ours, a mutual friend that's turned vegan. He's been vegan about 7-8 years. And he has had no health problems regarding his diet because, he's probably not a fussy eater, but he's researched. He's done his job to see what he needs. If I went vegan, because I'm quite a fussy eater, I'd struggle.
I've seen his fridge. And let's just say, it's stacked with all these different beans.
Beautiful foods,
some of the foods I've never heard of before. These tins, I got this from Morocco, or I've got this from Ethiopia. This
Shout out you, mate.
You know exactly who you are, and we're looking forward to the text message later.
Get him on.
I would have called him the tofu king. Yeah, he does love his tofu.
But it's going back to that. You look at people that do all these toxic diet.
I know exactly what you mean. These what is it called? I just detox diets. My
And they'll get a bottle of water and they'll put some lemon, they'll put some ginger, and I think what are you doing? Just drink water. And it's like, oh yeah, but it's good for my, again, guys, this is my opinion. I'm going to detox. Guys, we have 2 great organs that do this job. What are they? I forgot. The kidneys.
Your kidneys
and
your liver.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with me. The kidneys, it's their job to remove rubbish from you. You don't need to drink lemon water. Just drink water.
It's not like the lemon water goes into your blood. That's not how it works.
Great for weight loss. Water, we basically 60% water if you're an adult. And water is a great regulator of weight, great regulator of mood, great regulator of so many things. And people are so off-put by plain water. I know people that don't like water.
Oh, I know, sure.
And I think, okay, fair enough. There's other alternatives, milk, fruit juices, but then obviously you have to be careful. But if we look back at sort of the nutrition, what you're saying about having a balanced diet, not eating too much of anything. We went out for breakfast today. What do we have? Tell them what we had.
I had avocado and toast. I know, so that is the cringiest and most upper middle class thing.
You didn't take a picture though.
I didn't take a picture and put it on my Instagram for all of you, so don't worry, I'm not that guy.
And I had scrambled eggs and some hash browns. I wasn't going to. And I was going to have bacon, but I changed my mind. I was like, do you know what? You've got to enjoy yourself. And we had a good breakfast.
I made a cup of tea as well.
And a cup of tea. Very, very, very patriotic.
Lovely. It was lovely. Yeah, patriotic. Shout out the Queen, R.I.P. That was actually a very big moment. But you make a very, very good point. Take it from two people who do this industry. To all our viewers, take it from two very fairly young, upcoming experts within our field. I definitely wouldn't say experts just yet. I don't have any. Well, I have 2 publications to my name, and Gabe is definitely on that. He's a second master's on his way, and just goes to show, even though now we are within that level, I still wouldn't call myself expert. But no one ever can, and I hate people who do, because if you call yourself an expert, I don't know. I'm an opinionated person with a lot of publications behind me to kind of show. I do my research, as does Gabe, and as does.
There's always more to learn, isn't there?
There's always more to learn. Yeah, there's always doubt. I'm not 100%. This is the thing. Whenever someone says it's absolutes, they talk in absolutes. I have these nutritionists. They talk in absolutes. It's like there's no if, boss, or maybes.
I knew this.
It's gonna be absolutes, and I'm not gonna say where the original first part of that line, but it goes a bit like this. The idea is, you don't command a statement and assume it's be true. Look, if you're a runner and you meet a nutritionist and you want to get into fitness, and all they're saying is, my gosh, let me just tell you right now, you gotta cut the carbs. Or why? Where did that come from? Or you gotta have the fruit and vegetables. You gotta have the fruit and vegetables. Yes, I would patriotically stand behind the notion that 5 fruit and veg a day, 40 grams each a pop, is the way forward. But also I recognise that there are contexts as to the fact that I struggle to get those numbers in. I struggle to maintain a balanced diet all the time. But balance is not about it being perfectly level.
There's no such thing.
There is no such thing. It's the sum of your diet, from my personal opinion.
And a big thing about these fad diets, as we call them, which is quick weight loss. Okay, we're going to cut a food group out, and people go, "Oh, I'm losing weight." But I say, well, yeah, of course you are cutting out a third of what you would normally eat. If you're eating,
good luck when that diet ends.
This is it. But you don't break the lifestyle habits and you go back to it. So that I say to my mum, who's wanting to get a bit healthy now, I'm giving her advice, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to cut out my carbs." I think, why? What's the point? Carbs you need. Your brain can only use glucose. Your brain cannot use fat as fuel. What it has to do is then turn that fat, I'm going to be layman's terms here, convert the fat back into glucose. Your body's only use that fat as storage because, I mean, don't get me wrong, this winter it's going to be freezing, so, you know, it's pretty good to have a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying about...
With all the gas crises, put on a few pounds.
Yeah,
I don't want to advise that, but I definitely would actually advise it.
Do what makes you happy.
Yeah, do what makes you happy.
If you want to go out and have an ice cream, do it. There's a, you know, going back to what you're saying about the research publications and stuff, you've got to be so careful these days because, you know, we learn at uni, this was one of the, I think I've told you this story about, there was a publication about mushrooms, and mushrooms are great for weight loss. And if you dive into this whole study, you think, oh wow, I'm going to start eating mushrooms. And they had these two groups, you know, they had a group that didn't eat that many mushrooms, and then a group that were given X amount of mushrooms a day. But if from a nutrition point of view, you know that mushrooms are predominantly made of water. So they're going to fill you up. You're going to feel satiated because your stomach is full of water. But what you then dived into more is that the whole research was funded by the Mushroom Council because mushroom sales had gone down that year in America. So they created a study to sell more mushrooms to, you know, to help with weight loss.
Oh, man.
The whole study was bogus.
I mean, yeah, I can immediately ask, like, what are the two groups? The people who ate mushrooms, what were their lifestyles compared to the ones who didn't eat mushrooms? Were they more health conscious, the ones who ate mushrooms?
Were they in calorie deficit?
Do you know what I mean?
You could have a Big Mac a day, and that's it. Let's say you need to eat, let's say your BMR. So for people that don't know, BMR, basal metabolic rate, is the lowest amount of calories that you need to survive eventually. Yeah. Let's say for you-ish it was, I don't know, 2,000, let's just say. You were a big guy, it was 2,000 calories, and you had to eat, with your exercise, 3,000 calories a day to hit your optimum weight and to stay weight stable. You could have one Big Mac a day, let's say, that's 1,500 calories, and that's all you eat. You will lose weight. It's not the healthiest way to lose weight, but you will lose weight because your body is not having enough fuel to sustain its life functions.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about these papers that come out all the time? I mean, you actually make a good point about that mushroom one, but I see this plethora of information always come out, and it's always either saying, new research suggests that avocados may have cancer-fighting properties. Or new research suggests that blueberries might have a capacity to make you lose so much weight, it's incredible. Or, you know, just these...
What a great voice, that.
I don't know, that's my radio voice. But I recently read this other one, where it's like, recent study suggests that if you have a cup of... having sugar in your tea does not have an effect on making you lose weight. It's like, these are such... Like, I personally have an issue with why they even do these kind of studies.
It's crazy.
We know that sugar is sugar.
The green tea one gets me. My mum's drinking peppermint or green tea at the moment. She's like, oh, it's good for weight loss. It's health benefits. So, Mum, first of all, tea's a diuretic. So, yes, you may lose weight by drinking tea. Alcohol is also a diuretic. If you ever weighed yourself after a night out and you've drank a lot of alcohol, you're going to be ridiculously light because your body is
just taking out all
dehydrated
to shit
as much as it can. I don't know if we can swear on here, so I'm not going to say anything. But in terms of the point of...
We can.
That's fine. Thank you. In terms of the point of, you know, making sure that you're in a position where you enjoy yourself, but going back to these, you know, this will cause weight. You sound like the guy from Seth MacFarlane from...
welcome now to this episode of the Fighter Foods. And we are here, and this food is now graded as acceptable.
And, you know, the whole thing about eggs years ago being bad for your cholesterol. I love eggs. I probably go through about 15 to 20 eggs a week.
I love eggs.
And
you know, I'm on the same wavelength there.
And after a run, my go-to was a chocolate milk Yazoo. Yes, oh my god, it's got sugar in, but who cares? It tastes good. Milk
gets
for
the
me.
job
Look,
done.
I'm a milk guy. I'm a milk pro guy. I know milk guys that advocate milk because you know they're lactose intolerant, or they believe that we shouldn't be drinking milk. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't be drinking milk, but for me, it gives me everything I need. It's good carbs, good fats. You get the casein protein, you get your whey protein. Yes, you can go for other different options, but do you know what? I think I enjoy it. If I enjoy it after a run and, you know, neck the whole bowl.
I wanted to ask a little question. Is it true about this notion that after exercise there is no difference between having, say, a burger or like having like a...
So this is an interesting one, and I had a good
or like
chat
having a
with
healthy
one
meal,
of our
right?
lecturers who was the nutritionist at Leeds, Rhinos. And again, I'm not going to give my opinion and say you should eat a burger or you should eat, you know.
Yeah, the research found no difference is what I found. I don't know if that's
So this
true.
is what we were told, and I think it's looking about... So like, I'll give you an example. I'll make it a sort of a shortened version. They looked at a study in terms of these rugby players, and they were, you know, finish a game, they were starving. You know, these guys are burning stupid amount of calories.
And they must be concussed as well.
Probably, that's probably why. And they were craving McDonald's fast food, you know, the foods that really taste good. Yes, we know they're not good for all the chemicals, but...
Damn delicious.
What they found is that they would rather go out for McDonald's instead of come back to the players' cafeteria and have a really good substantial meal because, you know, after a rugby game, you know, let's say you've done your half marathon when you did it, you don't want to eat a salad after. You want to pig out, have a beer, you want to go and eat a pizza, something heavy. something stodgy that's going to make you sleep. Again,
maybe
this
go to
is
the
why
toilet
you
as
have
well.
big carb meals. Yeah, big carb meals makes you fall asleep. So they found a compromise. Instead of offering really rubbish meals or really good meals, they'd make good hearty meals like chili con carne, spaghetti bolognese, meals that they like lasagna. Even lasagna, yes, it's got calories, but these players, as you said, going back to that, they're exercising, they're burning a lot of calories. 2,000-3,000 calories. They need to replenish those calories, whether it's in with half an hour or 3 hours. Their body needs those calories, wherever it's coming from. So if you said to me, "Oh, Gabe, I've gone done a half marathon. I was craving a McDonald's and had McDonald's." Does it really matter?
No.
Yes, you're not going to get the best nutrition in, but do you know what? It doesn't matter. The next day, you rest it. I hope you probably rest the next day.
Yeah, definitely.
You would.
You
still
would
need
then
to
eat.
eat. Yeah, you still need to eat well. People think, I've worked really hard, I've eaten well, I can have a day off the next day and I can eat nothing. No, your body is still in a process of repairing.
It's actually just begun.
Your body doesn't stop.
It's literally always trying to get that homeostatic balance.
yeah,
Always trying to. I mean, like I said, I completely agree with that notion. I remember I was given beer after my half marathon.
It tastes amazing.
It tasted
the low-cal cans.
Yeah, it tasted like the nectar of the heavens,
It's
and but it was non-alcoholic beer, just to emphasize our audience. They didn't give us alcoholic beer, but it tasted so good.
Yeah.
And I drank like
Bitterness.
5 bottles of it on the way home, and it just nothing could quench that thirst. I was like, I could just keep going with this.
This is it.
It was so good, and it really hit the spot. And I think that's probably why, because they're so dense on the calories, or so dense on the sort of sugars and whatnot. I needed it.
They look at alcohol and like even Guinness, iron, really good iron, and even they say I think maybe like 1/8 of a pint is actually great to rehydrate you, and then the rest obviously just goes out the window. I mean, look, for example, this is obviously a nutrition podcast, so it's very nutrition based, and we try and take it seriously in terms of the, what you eat, what you should eat, and why you eat it. But looking at, I used to do cross country, used to hate it-ish. The only reason I did it was for a beer and an Indian meal after, because it was a sense of fulfillment and enjoyment.
I love that.
worked hard. I enjoyed my evening. Yes, I'm not saying, guys, you should
20 poppadoms after.
you should eat a curry every day, because yes, they're probably not good for you. It's very high in, unsaturated fats. But in the same time, enjoy yourself. So, my message for people is, yes, you can take life seriously. Yes, you can eat exactly what you want, but it's having a balance and making sure that, if it's your day off. I hate the whole cheat day finanza. Don't like it. Because it's like, you can throw away all the work you've done by eating rubbish 6,000 calories a day. If you want to have a chocolate biscuit, have one. For me, having a compromise. Instead of eating a whole pack, have 2 or 3. That are the little gains. They're the things that matter.
It's the little wins all the time, seeking the little wins.
So like,
just trying to you can enjoy yourself. Just don't spulge out. Don't go too far. And also remember the fact that you're doing this as a journey. And I think it's always important to remember that. You can have food. It's like the food that exists on the shelf is edible. They wouldn't sell it otherwise,
Being accountable.
Yeah, it's about being accountable to yourself. I think that's the most important thing. And in terms of fitness, if you are looking to become that next athlete level stage, even then, that sense of all or nothing
Usain
needs
Bolt,
to. Yeah.
Favourite meal, chicken nuggets and chips.
There you go.
This is it. Yes, don't get me wrong. That's probably not the best thing. There's worse.
Well, there are better options out there primarily, but it's not to say that. It's not to say this. Chicken nuggets and chips. They taste unreal, and they're not going to kill you one time you eat it, bro. It's a lifestyle. I've said this in several episodes before. It really is a lifestyle. It's balance. It's about remembering to enjoy your life while simultaneously remembering to restrict it to it doesn't take over your life. Because it's a little bit like treating anything you do that is a cardinal need, a cardinal. You need to do it. So eating, sex, sleep. You have a little too much of any of these, you're going to probably be in a very unhappy place. And that's the truth of it. You should treat food the same way you should treat any other absolute fundamental need of your life. Because if you like a little drink here and then, right, it's totally fine. A glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away, they always used to say.
I have a friend that's, a really, really clever nutritionist, and they like a glass of wine in the evening, once or twice a week. Yes, they know it's probably not good for them, but do you know what? It doesn't matter.
It does have the red. The red wine does show have benefits. I mean, they did an overall cohort study quite recently, and they did found that any amount of alcohol is not good for you. But then again, these numbers that they're talking about here are getting into the really, really crazy, probably 1 in thousands, 1 in hundreds of thousands, where it actually long-term development and So really what you're dealing with are very minute numbers, and you'd have to be consuming a lot of alcohol for these sorts of issues to kind of arise.
Your
The risk
liver's there
increases.
to deal with it.
Yeah,
your liver is there to deal with this stuff because it knows that there are things you eat that aren't good for you, but your body's a way of adapting it. Perfect example, like I said, I won't go on about it. I'm trying to lose weight at the moment. I went out for dinner the other night after a game of tennis, and the old version of me, the guy that wasn't too worried about his lifestyle a couple of months ago, would go out, shout out Pizza Express here, your garlic butter is something else. And I'd go out for a starter, I'd have a pizza and a dessert. So I'm making these accountable changes. So I'd still can go out for dinner, but I wouldn't have a starter or a main. Sorry. I wouldn't have,
You just had the dessert.
I just wouldn't have a starter or a dessert. I'd have a main because, yes, I can still enjoy myself and have a good meal. It's a social thing as well. Running can be quite a lonely sport, and I used to love that. But there's obviously having the, going with a group or going with your mates as we do. But going out and enjoying the day, and, I've worked hard, I've had a nice meal, but I'm still in a calorie deficit. And so getting 4 garlic butter dips, I got 2. So it's making little changes and not cutting out these big food groups that, in the long run, you're not going to feel happy. You cut carbs for a week, you feel horrendous.
You feel miserable, and I think that's no way to live life. Because at the end of the day, and I promise you, this is a little tip for the audience. I don't know if anyone knows this, but you will actually pass away at some point. No matter how healthy you eat,
even for a short time, make it the most.
And I'm not saying that means go out and end it in 5 months. I'm saying just remember that there is no eternity. What there is you're here for a short period of time. So in that short time that you're here, eat well, train well, stay healthy, live to a nice ripe old age.
Do what you love.
But also, do what you love as well. But never lose sight of the fact that when you're going through this journey, yes, you want to look good, you want to feel good. That is all to do with balance. Gabe, I got one last question for you before we end this podcast today.
No worries, go for it.
It's a little funny question that I've been asking everyone. I took this from the BBC Radio 4 show, Desert Island Discs. And at the end of every at the end of every episode, she asks, you're in a desert island and you can bring 3 bits of music with you. But instead of music, I'm going to say you're in a desert island and you can only bring 3 foods with you. What foods would they be?
That's a difficult one, No one's ever very like that question.
Now remember, I haven't specified anything about cooking techniques. I haven't specified anything. So you can have it. The desert can be as developed as you want it to be. It can be as non-developed as you want it to be. It can have all the cooking equipment in the world. It doesn't really matter. There could be Gordon Ramsay's damn restaurant on the island.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? I would probably say
it's raw.
Where's the lamb sauce? I'm gonna go peanut butter.
Oh, I've heard that one before.
Big one for me.
Amazing shout.
Just from a nutritional point of view, it's got everything you need. Pretty much.
Really does.
If I was on a desert island or a mountain and I needed calories, peanut butter is just life.
What a king.
Eggs. Eggs is a big one for me, and I mean it's just a lifetime favourite of mine. I love tuna.
Oh yeah.
I'm a sucker for tuna.
There is no doubt there. I actually know this man, and I can tell you right now, he loves it.
There's more oats, but keep it to 3. We'll say that. Eggs, tuna, and I've forgotten the first one now. Peanut butter. So
can you really live a life without oats, though, man? Yeah, that's the question.
Flapjacks and shortbreads are mine.
Imagine that. You're going to be on the diet with that for the rest of your life. No oats.
Do you know what?
I'll give you a chance to change it.
No.
Okay.
Stick with it. Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. So that was Gabe, guys. Thank you guys again so much for listening to this episode. I know we don't have a video for this episode, but today had to be audio only. But we'll get back onto the video hype at some point. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for our channel. Share our content and also promote it. We also love, getting out there and getting more people to hear this. And as well as that, we highly recommend anyone out there who's interested in coming onto the podcast, whether you're a nutritionist, physiotherapist, anyone within the fitness health industry, to come on board and to message and to reach out. NutriAdmin is the website, and we'll speak more about them in the intro of this video, so I'll leave that be as it is. I want to thank everyone again for listening to this podcast. I want to thank Gabe for coming onto this podcast. Really, thank you so much, Gabe.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. As I said,
pleasure.
When you mentioned it, I was excited. So I'm,
Hopefully we'll have you on for more episodes.
I will happily be on every time.
My pleasure, honestly. We'll get you on for another episode.
10-year time. And shout out to 10 years of friendship, my friend.
Oh, 10 years of friendship. Give me a high five next to the mic. There you go. Oh, I know, it's pretty sweaty, but we don't talk about that. Have a lovely day. This podcast is brought to you by NutriAdmin.com, the all-in-one software for nutritionists and dietitians that allows you to run your practice effectively and all in one place. NutriAdmin has been serving thousands of nutritionists, dietitians, and personal trainers since 2016. The software is rated 4.7 stars out of 5 amongst users. New features and improvements are being added all the time. To learn more about how NutriAdmin can help you cut down on paperwork, create meal plans, and handle your admin work more effectively, please visit nutriadmin.com. We offer a 14-day free trial, and if you enter the podcast code, promo code, podcast50 upon sign up, you'll get a 50% discount for the first 2 months of your subscription. Thank you.